Exploring the Unexplained.
In these days of computer technology, it's possible to give an audience their dose of TV magic more realistically than ever. Gone are the days of the bewitched effects, simple vanishing by freezing the action and stopping the camera, but before television, the only inexpensive form of escapism was the radio. Cheap to listen to and cheap to produce. For example, if I wanted you to believe that Doctor Who's TARDIS had materialised here in the MRO studio, I only need to push a button and the sound will help your imagination to do the rest. Oh, he's landed on Jimmy the Ghost in the corner. Well, from its earliest days, radio has been a natural home to science fiction. Buck Rogers debuted as a radio series from 1932, but 6 years later, Orson Welles' Mercury Theatre on the Air presented what was to go down in history as the cause of the greatest mass panic of all time. Or was it? Let's go back to October the 30th, 1938, and, especially for those who are too young to remember, find out what caused all the hoo-ha. Whole families would huddle around the radio sets to catch up on the latest music and entertainment. Orson Welles' Mercury Theatre on the Air productions were always a great favourite, but the special Halloween show that year held surprises that were set to grip the audiences in a way modern entertainment organisations can only dream about. The show began with a teaser from Orson Welles himself.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Then the show moved on to a little light music, played by Raymond Riccello and his orchestra, which was interrupted by a news reporter.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our program of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of the Mount Jennings Observatory reports observing several explosions on the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates the gas to be hydrogen and moving toward the Earth with enormous velocity.
Throughout the course of the show, with a promise that if listeners stayed tuned in, they'd be kept abreast of the breaking news, the drama progressed from the explosions on Mars, hinted at as being launches, through to live interviews with scientists and astronomers, to the excitement and confusion of the reporter with the inevitable landing and discovery of what was thought of as a meteor was something more sinister.
All right, just got here. I haven't had a chance to look around yet. I guess that's it. Yes, I guess that's the thing directly in front of me. The object itself doesn't look very much like a meteor. It looks more like a huge cylinder. Well, I've never seen anything like it. The color is sort of yellowish white. Something's happening. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw, and the thing must be hollow.
Almost halfway through the 1 hour show, a reminder was sent out to those who might have tuned in late, and confirming for those who were riveted from the beginning just what they were apparently listening to.
We are bringing you an eyewitness account of what's happening on the Wilmouth Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. We now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mill.
More state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit. About 30 of them. Wait a minute, something's happening. There's a jet of flame springing from the mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Lord, they're turning into flames. The whole field's caught up by the woods, the barns, the gas tanks of the automobiles spreading everywhere. It's coming this way now, about 20 yards to my right.
That cut-off in sound resulted in what's known in radio as dead air, something frowned upon in the industry, but the Mercury Theatre Company used it to great effect. For a radio audience used to the stereotypical type of science fiction found in boys' comics, this was gripping stuff. Seconds passed before a studio announcer tried to reassure the listeners that they'd be returning to the scene as soon as they could. I'd like to bet that the listeners were riveted and just as quiet as the output from the CBS station during those long seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed a message that came in from Grover's Mill by telephone. At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lie dead. Their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition.
And if that wasn't enough of a shocker, time to deliver a crushing blow. This time, involving someone the audience felt they could identify with, the reporter they'd invited into their homes that October night.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is a bulletin from Trenton. It is a brief statement informing us that the charred body of Carl Phillips has been identified in a Trenton hospital.
And after many more minutes of apparent confusion on the part of the network, doing their best to fulfill their obligation of keeping the listening masses informed, the time soon came to make a formal statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars.
The rest of the show moved back and forth from studio to field broadcasts and interviews with yet more experts, including military hierarchy, each snippet of breaking news becoming increasingly worse for humankind. There were even apparent broadcasts from military aircraft being cut off in mid-sentence. Gradually, the death toll grew to massive proportions, more reports, more dead air, until...
Our army is wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here to the end.
The good old CBS still had one lone, brave reporter who'd situated himself on top of the broadcasting house. He'd promised to stay until the end, and he was as good as his word.
This is the end now. Smoke comes out, black smoke drifting over the city. People are trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke's crossing 6th Avenue. 100 yards away, 50 feet.
UX2L calling CQ, New York. Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone?
The world seemed to be in the grip of annihilation. Yes, there were a few worried people. Many prayed, many called CBS to try to get reassurance that they weren't really witnessing firsthand the end of the world as we know it. Though in actual fact, there never was any evidence to suggest mass hysteria. There certainly are records of mass concern. If only they remembered back to the beginning of the radio show, when it was clearly announced as a drama. This was the opening announcement.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson Welles and the Mercury Theatre on the air in The War of the Worlds by H.G.Wells.
Nevertheless, the public reaction to Orson Welles and Howard Koch's radio adaptation of H.G.Wells' War of the Worlds has certainly caught the imagination of military forces around the world. The powers that be are using the Mercury Theatre's format to design information warfare against enemy troops, a kind of propaganda system to throw civilians into confusion in time of a major war. Another byproduct of the 1938 radio show is that the way the public reacted to the fictitious drama is now being used as the most compelling reason to protect the public from the knowledge of any suspected alien activity on Earth. Even Orson Welles himself was surprised by the response from the public to CBS while his live one-hour radio play was on the air, prompting him to end the broadcast by saying,
This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen, out of character, to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was intended to be. So goodbye, everybody, and remember, please, for the next day or so, the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch, and if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian. It's Halloween.
And it didn't do his career any harm either, catapulting him to stardom.